Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's edition of the Royals Rundown Podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. This show, as always, is brought to you by RoyalsReview.com, your one-stop shop for all things Kansas City Royals. Whether you need to know about the latest news, hottest prospects, or want to chat with other rabid Royals fans, you can find it only at RoyalsReview.com. I am Jacob Milham, and I'm joined tonight by the fidget spinner extraordinaire, Jeremy Greco.
That's
Jeremy,
right.
how's it spinning today, huh?
Just pinch me and then spin me around and tackle all the way. What are we doing?
We are already off the rails, buddy. That's how it's going today. Oh, no, I don't know why, but I have seen multiple people this past week with fidget spinners in the year 2025, which is very odd, I feel
got
like.
this Royals fidget spinner for Christmas. I've been playing with it while we're podcasting for like since I got it, basically. So the fact that you haven't said anything about it until now I don't know what that says about you.
Blissfully unaware, just like many of us want to be about the world outside of baseball. But we are going to stick to baseball today. If you like what we do here or are a Kansas City Royals fan, please follow or subscribe to the podcast. We are available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Good Pods, really wherever you get your podcasts from. If you want to continue the conversation with us, you can find our social links down in the podcast description below. For all y'all who want to stay off of social media, you can shoot me an email if you prefer, or Jeremy and we could be found at royalsreview.com. That comment section is a pretty good way to get our attention, I will say. All right. Well, Jeremy and I are going to get into it. Not a ton of Royals updates to talk about today. Spring training is chugging along. We are recording this 1 hour before the Sunday game against the San Diego Padres. That one is actually on TV, so we want to make sure that we can sit down and watch that one.
Don't you mean the Peoria Padres?
Excuse me, my fault. Yes, the Peoria Padres. That is always it's a nice little alliteration. I like it when it works out like that, you know.
Yeah.
So, a few things to talk about today. First off, go ahead.
Surprise, Royals.
Yes, we got to talk about Cole Ragans and his performance against the Chicago Cubs. Got to touch on that. We have a few injury updates. MJ Melendez is spring, but first I want us to start off with Jeremy. I think we can declare the rotation race is over.
I declared it over a while ago, but yeah.
You did. To your credit, you said that this really wasn't a race.
I think it was a race, but I think it was a two-man race between Kris Bubic and Alec Marsh, and once Marsh got hurt, it was Bubic's to lose, and Bubic has not lost it.
No, he absolutely
I think it was always Bubic's to lose, but his lead got much bigger, and he's done nothing to give any of it up.
No, he really hasn't, and I know a lot of people's concern, as was mine, was that Bubic's like velocity and his stuff wasn't going to translate from the bullpen to the rotation, and it seems like that hasn't been a problem for him.
Wait until he's throwing more than 2 innings, and then we can check.
True. A fastball still sitting consistently 93, 94. His sinker still has some good movement to it. The slider is showing a little bit more depth, and also his changeup is looking a lot better than it did last go around.
Didn't I read he added a cutter too? Did I read that?
So I think
somebody else.
I believe that was someone else. I don't think that he's like consistently deployed a cutter. Who was it? Gosh, dang it, I'm blanking. Was it
somebody
Cameron?
added a cutter and it's looking good?
I forget who added a cutter. I want to say it was one of the minor leaguers who did. But yeah, there's not a whole lot to cast out on Kris Bubic being the number 5 guy in the rotation, which, I mean, just how this rotation sits right now, this has to be another top 5 unit in the AL heading into 2025. I just don't see a lot of rotations that are this solid from top to bottom. And there's a pretty big drop off from number 5 to number 6, I would say. But still, like, even Alec Marsh would be a good number 4 on several teams around the league.
There are a couple teams I think would say, would you like to be our number 3 starter?
Yeah. So Kris Bubic, I think he is going to be just fine in the rotation. He's coming out of the bullpen. He's going to do good things behind Michael Lorenzen to start off the year. And I wouldn't be surprised if before the year's all said and done, Bubic is sitting as the number 4 guy in the rotation, if not the number 3, if a worst case scenario happens.
I think the Royals might have Bubic as the number 4 guy out of the gate.
Okay.
Not because he's definitely better than Lorenzen, but because once you have your 5, you have your 5. Does it really matter who's the 4th or the 5th starter? And that way you don't have both your lefties going back to back. Though
Hmm.
Bubic and Ragans are very different pitchers.
Yeah.
So I don't think you suffer as much. I do like the idea of keeping Lorenzen and Waka separated because they're both right-handed changeup artists. So maybe the Royals won't. That's how I would do it. But maybe the Royals will do something different. I don't know. We'll have to see.
Yeah, and I'm sure we'll get a good gauge on that probably after the third series of the season. But that's a great point, Jeremy. I didn't really think about that. Speaking of Reagan's, the other southpaw in Kansas City's rotation right now, he got absolutely shellacked by the Chicago Cubs Saturday night. It was not a great line when it was all said and done. 2 1/3 innings, 7 hits, 7 runs, 7 earned runs, 1 walk, and 4 strikeouts. Jeremy, are you panicking yet? Is the Cole Ragans era already done?
We've seen a start exactly like this almost
Yeah.
from Cole Ragans against the Orioles last year, where he's striking everybody out, and if it's not a strikeout, it's an extra base hit. He's not walking guys, so it's just one of those things. It's still early, it's still spring, it's still early spring, it's all of those things. So I'm not at all concerned, and obviously Reagan's bounced back from that Orioles start to be pretty good. 4th in the Cy Young voting, I believe it was. So
Mhm.
I'm not worried.
No, I don't think any Royals fan should be worried out there right now. I think you can tell sometimes when a pitcher is going out in a spring training outing and he's working on something very specific and very deliberate. Like it's not, oh, we'll try to do this. It's like, hey, I'm going out there and this game does not matter. I'm going to go out there. I'm going to do this every single pitch. And I think he was focused on putting it over the plate. As silly as that sounds.
He had a bunch of middle pitches, so yeah,
Yeah, and you know what?
that sounds about right.
When the stuff isn't as sharp as it could be and you're putting pitches there, well, you're going to get crushed. And for what it's worth, all of his pitches, the four-seamer, slider, changeup, knuckle curve, cutter, all of them graded at above 100 on the stuff plus scale. So they
And
were all above average pitches.
you got to remember Arizona, dry and high.
Yeah.
Pitches don't operate the way that you think they should.
No. They really don't. I do think that is I think he noticed that mostly oddly enough with his changeup. The shape of his changeup according to the numbers was just different enough and we saw him get crushed on that changeup in 2024 enough that if that shifted at all in spring, then that might cause some troubles. But it's spring training at the end of the day. We ain't celebrating the wins and we shouldn't be panicking about the losses either, I would say. I'd I mean, what we'll see him probably later on this week in another outing. I mean, we might only have like 4 more Cole Ragans appearances this spring. There's not a whole lot of spring training games left for some of these pitchers, especially.
Yeah.
Moving along, so listen, he's at the top of the rotation. Bubic is going to be at the bottom of the rotation. Everything seems pretty set in stone on the pitching side of things. So I do
Or
want
at
to
least
go
the
over.
starting rotation. I think there's some
Yeah,
questions in the bullpen still. Not
well,
sure that there's as many as people might think. Not as many as last year, but there are questions.
there are questions, and one of the questions right now is when will Carlos Estévez make an appearance
But
for the Kansas City Royals?
has Hunter Harvey pitched yet for the Royals either?
I don't believe so. I
See,
don't
that's more
think we've
concerning
seen
to
him.
me than Estevez because Harvey was out, at the end of last year. Estevez pitched into the playoffs.
Can you look up Hunter Harvey, see if I've just missed his outing or something? And let me talk about Carlos Estévez. So he was delayed a little bit. He had a scheduled appearance in the Cactus League on February 26th, but still dealing with some low back tightness. He is scheduled to throw a bullpen session on March 2nd, and then they're going to go from there. that's the last that we heard from. Things are sounding good, at least for like opening day when it really matters, but he might still need a little bit of ramp up time. Jeremy, did we
Harvey
flinch?
has pitched in 2 games, but I
Okay.
don't think it's surprising that we don't remember him. He's pitched in 2 games. He has struck for 2 innings. He has struck out no one, walked no one, and given up 1 run. Um,
Impressive.
yeah, it's like the epitome of, "Were you there?"
Yeah, exactly. Okay, then. Another guy that we're still waiting to see for the Royals this year, Kyle Wright. I know that I think that like maybe a month ago he was still considered in the rotation race, but he had a setback, already coming back from that shoulder surgery, excuse me. He is scheduled for his second bullpen on March 4th, but you know that a right hamstring strain, I think for no, that's not his block leg, excuse me. But still, any moving part in the lower body for a pitcher, that's really, really tough.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
we talk about the arms, but pitchers use their whole bodies to generate that velocity. That's why they stride off of the mound the way they do. Otherwise, they just stand straight up and fire it in there. So yeah, lower body is super important. I mean, it's super important for any athlete. It's your
Yeah,
base.
that's
It's
true.
it's it's as a hitter, you got to have your base if you're gonna twist. Because there's all of in baseball, especially. I haven't studied the biomechanics. I'll admit I haven't studied the biomechanics of baseball. I have observed them to a degree. I've studied them very mildly, and there's so much in baseball is about your torque of a pitcher, the twisting and coming back around to determine that velocity, and then as a hitter, obviously the torque of twisting your body to bring the bat through the strike zone as hard as you can. And you got to have a base for that. In a way, your base is in a lot of ways more important than anything your arm is doing or your arms are doing as a hitter, because you have to have that foundation to generate that torque, to generate that velocity, whether it's your pitch or your bat. So it's super important he get healthy, super important the Royals don't rush him. And I got to say, he may have been considered a candidate, but I always assumed he was going to start the year on the injured list or in the minors.
Yeah, and I could see him starting in the minors. They, according to MLB.com, they're still expecting him back in action in early March. It is March 2nd right now, so take that information for what it's worth. The last injury update that we have for today, Dairon Blanco, a guy that we spoke about, might have a ripple effect on the opening day roster. Sounds like he's going to be back later on this week. A manager, Matt Cotrero, said he's going to begin ramping up in the coming days, and that was on March 1st. So they're expecting him back sooner rather than later from that right Achilles tendon tightness. Jeremy spoke about that injury in a little bit more detail and how
Well,
it could
to be
affect him.
clear, my
I,
experience with
right.
a similar injury,
Yes, sorry.
I am not a doctor, so it may be different somehow, but I'm not super concerned about it. On the other hand, he's been out for a few days. He's going to begin ramping up sometime this week. Will he be ready for opening day?
That is true. We have less than a month. We have less than a month until opening day. We are in March now. This is something that the clock is ticking, and it's not on Blanco, Estevez, or Wright's side for that matter. Another guy who the clock was ticking on this offseason, MJ Melendez, Jeremy. I think he was easily the most polarizing Royals player this
For
offseason.
sure.
And he has, I don't know if he's won guys over. I don't think he's won fans over, is what I mean to say, excuse me. But I think that he's done a lot of good things this spring so far. The other night he had the only run for the Royals. The swing seems to be consistent. Like I'm not seeing it slipping into his old posture or mechanics or anything like that. So far so good there. Uh, but I don't know. Like, are you believing it so far? Or are you still looking at it like same old guy, same old production?
So I'm looking at MJ Melendez's spring numbers.
Mm-hmm.
27 WRC plus. That's pretty good. 273 ISO. Sure, great. Obviously that's going to be inflated some by Arizona, but that's where you want it to be. My thing is 41.7% strikeout rate.
Yeah, he had a lot of strike. Yeah.
he is still whiffing a lot. He's got a swinging strike percentage of 22.4%, which would be almost double his career. Now, again, it's spring. But he is working on a new swing. Is that swing comfortable enough to where he can face major league quality pitching? At this point, he's facing professional quality pitching, not major league quality pitching. Is it where it needs to be in order to be successful? I don't know. I also was watching some of his swings. I don't remember when. It was one of these early spring games, and he's starting in the new position, but when he brings the bat through the strike zone, he's getting off balance and reaching again, it looks like to me. So I'm a little concerned that he's kind of he's already losing the mechanics of that swing, and that it could end up poorly. Now, it may not end up poorly, because if the problem was always just the start, and he's ending more balanced. So if the problem was just where he was starting and he's getting the bat to the zone sooner, then maybe this works out okay, because obviously the way he was swinging still generated plenty of power when he made contact, but the making contact is kind of the key for him. So I'm not all in on MJ by any means. I'm not out on MJ either. I'm willing to let this process kind of play out a little bit longer. Again, I would like this process to play out as MJ Melendez is batting, 8th or something. So, because the rest of the lineup's good, but that's not where we're at. So
nope, it is not. It is not. It gave me a little bit of optimism that, like, okay, cool, he had a home run on Friday. That's great and all. But his home run did come against the Diamondbacks' primary setup guy from last year. So this is an experienced MLB veteran who the Diamondbacks trust with high leverage situations. And Melendez, took him 420 feet to center field. So, like, that's where a little bit of my optimism is. Of course, that's one reason why we are recording early, because we want to see more of these looks. We don't want to just rely on the radio broadcast and StatCast. We want to see these players and, like, okay, well, what are they doing differently? Is this actually different or just
I think
lucky?
it was the replay of the home run swing I was watching that I was like, yeah, that worked, but will it work?
Yeah, and unfortunately, we won't have a solid yes or no answer until, like, what, May?
Yeah, at the earliest, I would think.
Yep. So I think we're both on the same page here, Jeremy. Not in, not out, but definitely I would say trending in the right direction, or in the direction I would want to see for Melendez.
This is what I can say with certainty. I feel better about him right now than I did this time last week, when all he had done was strike out.
There you go. Yep. You know what? Can only
Strikeout
go
rate
from
is
there.
going down. That's what we like.
That is what we always want to see from our Kansas City Royals players. Listen, Jeremy, not a ton of Royal stuff to talk about this week at all. It has been, I know Bobby got his first home run since we've last spoken. We were joking about him kind of having a cold spring last podcast episode. It happens. These guys are knocking off rust and things like that. Is there anything else that our listeners need to know about for the Royals right now?
So I was listening to the game last night, and I'm keeping a close eye on Jonathan India as well, and he creamed a couple of balls, and they both turned into flyouts. So one of the questions about Jonathan India as the Royals were trading for him was his power ability, and my hope was that in a place like Kauffman that rewards doubles hitters more than home run hitters, that a guy who doesn't hit a ton of home runs would find more success.
Mm-hmm.
But if he's going to cream fly balls that guys can catch on the track, it's not helping. But then again, this is also Arizona. Surprise Stadium is built differently from Kauffman, so things are going to play differently there than they will in Kauffman and the other expansive outfields of the American League Central. So again, don't want to read too much into that. Just something I'm watching.
Okay.
Yeah, I've got my next roster preview is coming out tomorrow morning. So I don't know if you want me to spoil anything from that, or you spoil everything from that.
No, I want to know. So you brought up the bullpen earlier on in this episode. How is the bullpen looking in your most recent roster prediction?
So I think we can all agree there's kind of 5 locks right now. You've got Urseg, Estévez, Zerpa, Schreiber, and there was one more. Who am I missing? Harvey.
Harvey. Yeah.
Harvey. So you get your 5 locks. That leaves you 3 spots for a bunch of guys.
Yeah.
Evan Sisk did not look good last night. I never really thought he was in, but he was going to have to pitch really well to get in.
Mm-hmm.
So he's not doing that right now. You know who is pitching really well? Chris Stratton.
Yeah. I don't know how much to believe it, man. Like, I want
Yeah.
to. I really want to believe it.
I think with the $5 million price tag, the Royals are going to believe it at least through opening day.
Yeah.
So I'm predicting him to the roster. I am now predicting Carlos Hernandez to miss. He's just not getting it done. You can't have both of those guys, I don't think.
I don't
And
think
so
so.
I think he's gone. I do think Daniel Lynch the fourth makes the bullpen just because of how good he was at the end of last year. And I don't think he's a starter anymore. So and you're burning his rookie deal. You might as well get something out of him. And that leaves one spot.
Sam Long?
I have to go look up Sam Long. Sam Long, of course, who's not pitched great, but he was good enough last year and just there's nobody else that's like, gotta give the spot to that guy.
Yeah.
Unless you're talking about Guerrero has looked pretty good. I can't remember his first name now.
Tyson, I believe.
Tyson Guerrero has looked pretty good,
Yeah.
but he's a non-roster guy.
Mm-hmm.
With somebody like Long, if you don't keep him, he's gone. I don't think he
Yeah.
has any options. So that's the direction I'm leaning with the bullpen. So again, for all that blathering, if you want just the 8, it is Estévez, Urseg, Harvey, Zerpa, Lynch, Stratton, Long. I'm missing one still.
Well, pull up your article, friend. Come on, man.
Yeah, I'm
You're
trying to
good.
do this from memory.
Yeah,
It's
you're
not
good.
working.
You're good. And I don't know. I think it would be a very shocking move if the Royals moved on from a guy like Sam Long. Very much, he came into the organization last year on just hey, if you do anything, it's a win for this transaction. And he wasn't perfect down the stretch last year, but he does give you another middle leverage lefty where I think Zerpa is kind of ready to take that step into the high leverage lefty role. So Long is kind of your insurance behind him, and that's going to leave Lynch to be your bulk guy as if that's needed down the stretch.
I was forgetting Schreiber again. I always forget Schreiber.
That's who it was. Okay.
So the 8, to give you the full 8 all at one time: Urseg, Harvey, Estévez, Zerpa, Schreiber, Long, Lynch, Stratton.
There you go.
Steven Cruz, I think, is going to fall into that category that Walter Pittington was in last year, to a degree, Sam Long, where everyone's like, why isn't he up here? He's striking everyone out. He looks so good. But hopefully the bullpen is going to be better than it was at the beginning of last year.
Hopefully.
So the cries for Cruz won't be as big. Though I do hope he gets a shot this year. He's looked really good at various points, but the Royals just keep kind of saying, yeah, we don't believe it.
Yeah, I never did understand that, but yeah, he has 2 options remaining, so he is kind of the smart guy to start the year in AAA Omaha. One guy that I don't know, Jonathan Bowlan hasn't been perfect in a relief role.
He's got options.
He's got one option. So I am curious if he makes the opening day roster, just like as something completely out of left field. If they say, hey, we want to have a bulk option from the right-handed side rather than from the left-handed side, you start Lynch as a starter down in AAA, and you have Bowlan with his one option remaining. I don't know. I was a Bowlan believer like years ago, and now I get it. He's just a reliever. He's not the starter that we all hoped he would be, but it seems like the team believes in him coming out of the bullpen more so coming from the rotation. So we'll see there. And then Eric Sarantola is just kind of hanging out there. Like he's in the picture, but very much in the background.
Chandler Champlain has done nothing to advance his cause, unfortunately.
Unfortunately so. It has been rough for him this spring. I will tell you that much.
I'm going to give you one more sneak peek for the article tomorrow.
Okay.
Who, 2 in our eyes, will make the team on the bench?
Okay. I like it. I'm I'm trying to think who the second one is that I'm. Are you going to say that John Rave and Kevin Biggio are going to make the roster?
I've said too much.
Jeez Louise. All right. Well, maybe it's Jack Caglione then. I don't know. Y'all will just have to go check out royalsreview.com tomorrow morning, Monday morning, to find out the answer. So, Jeremy, thank you for another. I mean, are you going to do one a week until
Every
opening
other
day,
week.
you think?
Every
Every
other
other week? Okay, gotcha. I couldn't remember if you did one last Monday or the Monday before. So, we'll just have to keep an eye out for that. All right, Jeremy. I got nothing else. You wanna do some Royals reviews?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. I got another quick one for you today. I reviewed Revenge of the Tipping Point by Malcolm Gladwell a couple of months back, and that was kind of my introduction to Malcolm Gladwell. So I've been reading a few more of his books, or trying to. And he had a podcast series that he combined just into an audio book. It's called I Hate the Ivy League, Riffs and Rants on Elite Education. And each one of these chapters is looking at different aspects of higher learning, of accessibility to it, costs, testing procedures, things like that. And I very much enjoyed it. I was never really in the echelon of looking at going to the top universities or things like that. And so I think that I relate more with the people who struggle to have access to it, but also like hearing some of the stories of the people who have the talent, the willpower, and the brain power to succeed in these schools and just not have the tools or the support to get there is very frustrating. So if you're a little disillusioned from that whole sphere of education, I would go check it out. Or if you just want to hear a new perspective on how education impacts other people's lives, go check out I Hate the Ivy League. Again, I also really liked how it's formatted like a podcast. Like, it's not just him reading a book, it's him, you're hearing the interviews, you're hearing some ambient noise, things like that. So I like the production of it as well.
Ambient.
Yeah, ambiance is what I meant to say, but I didn't finish the word in my mouth.
Boy.
So, Jeremy, over to you.
I'm going to give you a study in Netflix by two movies.
Okay.
So a couple weeks ago, I watched Lift on
Yes.
Netflix, which is a Kevin Hart vehicle produced by a company that starts with Hart, so I can only assume it's his production company. And he was the star, and it was a heist movie. I love heist movies. Ocean's 11 stands as one of my top 5 favorite movies of all time, or at least top 10. I don't know. It's hard to keep track. It's a top 10 favorite movie of all time for sure. And so I was like, hey, a heist movie. Let's check that out. That could be fun. Vincent D'Onofrio is in that too, of Kingpin fame.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. My favorite part of a heist movie is the gathering of the crew. When you see everybody kind of pulling shenanigans on their own, and you're like, okay, this is what each of these people brings to the team. This is their personality quirks. This will be fun to see how they all interact together. Lift starts with the team already assembled, and there are personality quirks, but the movie focuses so much on Kevin Hart, who's fine, but like not amazing. And when you do a heist movie, it really is supposed to be an ensemble movie. I mean, we got, again, going back to Ocean's 11, you've got Matt Damon, Brad Pitt, and George Clooney. And they still made room for it to be an ensemble movie. They weren't like, this is my movie, you know? And to really focus on Kevin Hart took away a lot of that quirky interaction stuff that makes a heist movie so much fun. It felt more like a really watered down Mission Impossible movie.
Gotcha.
With less cool stunts, less cool graphics. There was lots of random CGI in places that didn't, like, they cracked open a safe, and a whole bunch of gold bricks fell out, and it was CGI. Why? You can't just get some gold bricks to fall out of a safe, like some fake gold bricks, obviously. But
Right.
like with physical props, you have to use CGI. What do we?
That's dumb. That's lazy.
It was so weird. And like, it wouldn't have bothered me except for the movie just it lacked any kind of personality. It felt like the kind of movies that Netflix has really been, I think, leaning into recently of they want it to be a second screen experience. They want it to be obvious enough that what's happening, shallow enough what's happening that people are on their phones still are able to follow it, which is fine, but not what I want when I watch a movie. Even when I watch a movie with a second screen, I focus enough on the movie to pay attention to what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
So I was disappointed. It wasn't a bad movie, but it was mediocre in the worst way. The other Netflix movie is Glass Onion, a Knives Out mystery, which I have
Yes.
seen before, but I watched with my mom, which is just a delightful film, which absolutely does not cater to a second screen experience. If you're not paying attention, you're going to miss things.
Mm-hmm.
And so fortunately, I was paying attention. My mom was not. So every time she's like, "What?" And I'm like, "It's this and this and this." So yeah, you gotta actually pay attention to that movie. It is a terrific, fantastic film. I loved Knives Out. I think a lot of people love Knives Out. I wasn't sure if I would love Glass Onion because the things I loved about Knives Out weren't necessarily Daniel Craig. It was the whole cast, the ensemble film.
Mm-hmm.
And Glass Onion is another ensemble film with a little bit more Daniel Craig in it than Knives Out, but he's fantastic and he doesn't steal from anybody. He just takes what he's got. And this is not a criticism of Kevin Hart as a person or as an actor. That's just the way that film was designed, I think. So to watch, to go from one to another, and a mystery film can be a heist film in a lot of the same ways of the colorful cast of characters and how are they interacting. So if you're thinking about watching Lift, just watch Glass Onion.
Yeah, exactly.
And it was very cathartic to watch everyone destroy Miles Braun's home.
Oh, yes, of course. Man, you know what? I might need to go back and rewatch Glass Onion because a lot of things have changed in tone and tenor since
Yeah,
I watched that the first go around. I know, so I am a huge Agatha Christie fan. I
sure.
I really, really am, and I remember the lead up to Knives Out, and I'm blanking on the director's first name. I know his last name is
Ryan
Johnson.
Johnson.
Ryan
Ryan Johnson.
Johnson, thank you. And he said like he took a lot of inspiration from Agatha Christie in just like that who done it with the Alfred Hitchcock twists. So I love those two movies and I really want to go watch Clue now all of a sudden.
You gotta know like how good Knives Out and Glass Onion are, that I knew everything about Knives Out before I watched it. I'd watched I had been convinced myself that I didn't have any interest in it, so I watched a bunch of YouTube videos from YouTubers I liked about it
Mm,
because I like the YouTubers. So I knew all of Knives Out when I went in, and I still adored it. And I watched Glass Onion, like I said, for a second time. I knew everything that was going to happen this time. And I still had such a fun time. That's how you know your mystery movie is good, is that even when you know the mystery, you can enjoy everything else that's happening.
yep, precisely. So yeah, go check out those two movies. You ain't gonna regret it. Alrighty, folks, that is going to do it for us today. Thank you so much for sticking around with us. We really do appreciate y'all's support. We really do appreciate it when y'all reach out to us, and we love hearing what you want to know about the Kansas City Royals. So please go check out the links down in the podcast description below to keep the conversation going, or you can just support us by following and subscribing to the podcast wherever you're listening to us at. I am Jake Milham. They are Jeremy Greco. Thank you so much for joining us. And until next time, go Royals.